Okay, today's lesson is on order of operations. You guys probably knew it as PEMDAS. And order of operations is the correct order that you're supposed to go in when solving a numerical expression. Order of operations has three main steps. Okay, first step. Find the value of expressions inside grouping symbols such as parentheses, as you know, parentheses are these things, brackets, I've always called brackets glorified parentheses, but they're the squared off symbols like that. And as indicated by fraction bars. And what that means is, if you have a fraction bar, that means you work out the top using the correct order of operations, then work out the bottom of the fraction using the correct order of operations. You do each one separately. Okay. That was the first step. Second, do all multiplications and or divisions from left to right. Whichever one comes first. And the third step is do all additions and or subtractions from left to right, whichever comes first. Okay, those are the three main steps you will use when solving your numerical expressions. Okay. Let's start with working a few examples. Whoops. Okay. Find the value of each expression. Let's start simple. Okay, according to the order of operations, we're supposed to find the values of expressions inside grouping symbols, like parentheses, brackets, etc. There is none of that, so we can move on to the second. Do all multiplications and or divisions from left to right. Okay, so do we have multiplication or division? Yes, we do. And it says to do whichever comes first, left to right. Well, in this case, the division comes first. So 12 divided by 3 would become 4. And you bring down the part that you haven't done yet. Keep going. Now we multiply. You multiply before you add or subtract. So 4 times 5 is 20. And then the last step is do all additions or subtractions. Well, the only thing we have left is subtraction. So 20 minus 4 is 16. Okay. Let's see. Okay, remember, first step is to do all grouping symbols. And I know you see parentheses here, but notice inside parentheses is just one number. There's nothing to do in that. The 5 in the parentheses with the 3 in it stuck together just means they're being multiplied together. So that really just means 5 times 3. But we do have a fraction bar, and we're supposed to treat that as grouping symbols. So we start with the top. There's only one thing you can do to the top, and that is 18. Then we go to the bottom. Well, we know we got to multiply before we can subtract. So that's going to be 15 minus 13. Okay, we're done with the top, right? So we just bring down the 18. And 15 minus 13 is 2. Then your last step will be to simplify. What is 18 over 2? Or, as we all know, 18 divided by 2. 9. 9 would be your final answer. So on that last step, if you can simplify, do it. Don't leave it as a fraction. Okay. Let's find a good one. Okay. Bracket 3 minus 6 divided by 2 plus 14. Okay, so going in order, we are to do grouping symbols first. Well, we have 2 grouping symbols. We have the brackets and we have parentheses. So go inside the brackets. Remember, those are like glorified parentheses. So you start with those, go inside. Now, inside the brackets, the first step would be to do the parentheses, because we've got to do all grouping symbols first. So bring everything else down and just do what's in the parentheses. 6 divided by 2, which is 3. Okay, now we have the brackets. We got to do those before we can move on. 3 minus 3 is 0. Okay, 5 being stuck to the brackets with a 0 inside of it. Remember, this represents multiplication. Anytime a number is stuck to parentheses or a bracket or another letter, a variable, that means multiplication. So you know you've got to multiply before you can add. So 5 times 0 is 0. And then last step will be to add 14. Okay. So that is several examples for you to go by to help you solve using the order of operations. Now we're going to learn how to evaluate an algebraic expression. Pretty much the same steps, you're just going to have to substitute in values for the variables. Let's see. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. I'm afraid I'm going to run out of room, so I'm going to go to the next page to finish the notes off. Okay. When I go over there, we'll be doing note number 3. Okay. Okay, here we go. Note number 3. Evaluate or solve is what that means. Each expression if m equals 8 and p equals 2. Okay, so we're going to be given values for the variables m and p. 6 times p minus m divided by p. Okay, remember a dot means multiplication. So we're going to plug in or substitute in the values for the variables. So it would be 6 times, and instead of p, we're going to plug in 2, since it says p is equal to 2, minus m is 8, p is 2. Now that we have just numbers, we're going to follow the order of operations. First step would be grouping symbols. Well, we do not have any grouping symbols. So now we go to the second, which is where you multiply or divide, whichever comes first, from left to right. Well, in this case, it's multiplication. So you're going to do 6 times 2, and you're going to get 12. We can't subtract yet because we still have division, so just bring that down. And then 8 divided by 2 is 4. Don't forget to follow the steps. You multiply and divide everything first, then your last step will be to add or subtract, or both. And then the last step is subtraction. And you get 16. Okay, let's do one more like this. Okay, now let's substitute in the values for our variables. So in place of m, I'm going to put 8. In place of p, I'm going to put 2. Okay. So order of operations is grouping symbols. Well, we have brackets, which is our glorified parentheses, so you know we got to go inside that first. And inside that, you start over with the steps, which is still grouping symbols, and we do have that. We have parentheses. So we know we can't do nothing with the 8 plus 2 yet until we deal with the parentheses. 3 plus 2 is 5. Okay, so the only thing we've got to do so far is the parentheses inside the brackets. Okay, now let's go back inside the brackets and finish what we started. Remember, the parentheses is around the 5. That there's nothing to do inside the parentheses. Remember, in this case, that represents multiplication. That means 2 times 5. So we have to multiply before we can add. So you just bring down the 8, and 2 times 5 is 10. Okay, we're still in the grouping symbols because you cannot drop the grouping symbols until you have done everything on the inside. So now inside the brackets, we're going to add 8 plus 10. And then the last step will be to divide. 18 divided by 2 is 9. Okay, guys, this is your lesson in a nutshell. This should be enough to get you started on today's assignment. Let me know if you need any help.